see. That right there? Those are elderberries. The more that I get into herbs, the more I learn. And I haven't gotten in very far at all, but one of the things that I have been trying to grow myself is elderberries. And so I was noticing this spring, driving around the countryside, that I was seeing these huge white blooms all over the place, but especially in areas that were very overgrown, on steep hillsides or steep ravines, but all over the place on the side of the road, especially on the road where I live, which happens to be a major road that's very busy. So I started driving around. Well, no, first I stopped on the road that I live on and I looked at the berries and I looked at the leaves and I was like, I know exactly what that is because I'm growing that. Those are elderberries. So I started driving around on more deserted roads that would not have a lot of traffic, because I know that harvesting berries off the side of a very busy road is probably not the greatest thing. Too much chemicals, you know, from the exhaust and the road and all of that. So that was back in May, maybe. And now it's early August and I am out here in the couple of places that I found that were not on busy roads, and we are checking out the elderberries that we found. Some of them are not quite ready yet, but we're finding lots that are and picking like crazy. Look at how many berries that is. We're gonna go home and put these in the dehydrator. Am I sure what? Oh, look. There, that's mullein.
Where?
But I already found a good bit of mullein on the side of the road and picked that and dried it and all of that. So I'll leave that for next year. I don't believe it's big enough to grow flowers yet. It probably needs to wait a year anyway. I'll have to remember that there's mullein over where I'm picking the elderberries. All right, that's probably gonna be it for today. You got our elderberries for us?
Yep.
And what are we gonna do with them when we get home?
Dry them.
Dominic, look at the...
Dry them.
We're gonna dry them. How are we gonna dry them?
With what will you say, Mom?
We're gonna put them in our dehydrator and dry them. A lot of times here in the Southeast, it is not so easy to dehydrate things by just hanging them up in the house somewhere. Way too much humidity in the air. So I use my dehydrator. And as you can see, there are still a good many clusters of berries on this bush or tree or whatever you want to call it. Look at those. But they are still red and some of them are even green. So I will have to come back next week and try to get some more. While we were out on our trip foraging for elderberries, we decided to go stop by our local Tractor Supply because they have chicks again.
Look.
Yeah.
Look, Mama.
So of course the kids took them out and are playing with them in the car. See this cute little duck?
And
Poor
I'll
thing.
show you a chicken.
Its heart's just beating like crazy. Here, take it, please.
Here.
Okay, so we have all kinds of chicks and ducks, and now we have to get them home and get them in a brooder. I only have my 3 little ones home right now. Everybody else is out of the house for the evening.
Okay.
But I just got a phone call from Ryan wondering where we were because he's at the house and none of us are there. So guess what he's gonna be doing when I get there? One of the things the kids love to do when we get home Just get out at the top of the driveway and just run down there. Puny little elderberries, one of mine. As you can see, they're not ripe yet. Looks like I probably already missed some there. That one will be ready to pick soon. None on there, but hopefully next year. Hi everyone. Now that you have seen us pick the elderberries, we are going to make some elderberry syrup. Today, the background that you're seeing behind me is obviously not my farm because there's a lot of trees here and we don't have those on our farm. But the reason you're seeing all of that is Charlie and I are on a 1 week's vacation out of town. We are in the Smoky Mountains and the kids are taking care of all matters at home. So you hear the crow fly overhead. I brought all of the ingredients to make elderberry syrup along with us because I ran out of time to do it before we were leaving on Friday. So you only need 6 ingredients to make elderberry syrup. Honey, ground cinnamon, ground cloves, water, dried elderberries, and ground ginger. That's it. It's a really simple recipe to make, and I end up making this several times a year because of the size of my family. We go through a lot of elderberry syrup, especially during the fall, winter, spring kind of fluish season. And given all of the health concerns that we've had going on in 2020, I know a lot of you are going to want to make elderberry syrup soon also. Just go ahead and get it made, get it put into your fridge, and you'll have it ready to go ahead and start doling out to your family whenever you need it. Okay, so we have 7 cups of water, 1 1/3 cup of elderberries. Just pour it right in. Get them all in there. 2 tablespoons of dried ginger. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And 1 teaspoon of cloves. You do also need the honey, but that's going to be last. We're going to cook this down and strain it before we add the honey. Let's go inside. So we're in the teeny tiny kitchen at our cabin where we're staying, and we're just going to take everything that we just dumped into the pot, turn it on about medium, and give it a nice little stir. And then get it all mixed in there. These chunks of cinnamon or whatever will break up after it cooks. Put the lid on, and we're gonna let it boil and come back. Okay, well, there's steam coming off the pot, so I'm assuming that it's boiling. Definitely is. We're gonna give it a little stir again. I'm gonna leave the lid off to give it an opportunity to reduce some. We're going to reduce it about by half, which I'm not really great at estimating that, but I'll set a timer. I think I usually reduce it for 45 minutes to an hour. And of course that just depends on how high you have it simmering as to how long it takes and how far it reduces. But I guess it's also kind of up to you and how thick you want your syrup. So we'll let this sit for the next 30 minutes and we'll come back and check on it and see if we feel like it needs to go further or what. I definitely don't want to go all the way to 45 because you never know when you might make a mistake. Start. Okay. So after 30 minutes, you can definitely see that it has reduced somewhat, mainly by, you can see the level that it was previously at when we began from that dark line and where it is now. But I definitely think it should keep going a little bit more, so we're going to give it at least another 15 minutes. So it's been cooking down for at least a good 45 minutes now, and you can kind of see, again, this little line here around the edge of the pot, and that it's reduced a decent amount. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it off. And I'm gonna strain it using just a basic strainer and some cheesecloth just into another container, in this case another pot. We want to get all those good berries out of there, not waste them. Okay, so now you can see it's pretty full. I'm going to stir it some more and let it continue to drain for a little while. Okay, so as you can see, it's pretty much done draining. There's next to no liquid down in there. So I'm just going to give it all a good press. Trying to squeeze out as many of those good nutrients, vitamins, minerals, everything as we can. That's the liquid that we have left. We will be letting that cool to about room temperature before we add the honey, as it is raw honey, and raw honey is also full of lots of nutrients, and we don't want to kill those. So we want to let it cool enough so that the honey will melt in there, but not to kill off all of its good bacteria. And all of these used elderberries, I'm just going to spoon them into a container and bring them home for our chickens, because there's no point in wasting all of that goodness either. Okay, the elderberry liquid is plenty cool. We're going to add the honey. And yes, that is a lot of honey. In full disclosure, I did not use the elderberries that I harvested a couple of weeks ago. Those are still at home, but I had already purchased some dried elderberries, and so that's what I'm using right now.
How much will this make when it's all complete?
Well, it depends on how far you have cooked your syrup down. We'll see in just a couple of minutes when I get it all poured into some jars. Okay, the honey is all dissolved into the elderberry liquid, and now have our syrup. It's not very thick, which is fine, but it's all ready to go. I'm just using some jars that I had from a previous purchase, and we're just going to fill those up. So at best, this might make a quart of elderberry syrup. Of course, you can double the recipe to your heart's content and make however much you need for your family. When there's a lot of colds going on, this at the best would get my family through a week. For our family, I typically give my older kids, we'll say ages 12 and up maybe, a full big spoon's worth of elderberry syrup. Generally one time a day. If we are just working on some maintenance, of our immune system. Our younger kids, I have a smaller spoon and I'll give them that 1 time a day. If we have some active sickness going on, then it's definitely happening at least 2 times a day. Just kind of depending on how much I can remember to do it, but I'm always encouraging, especially my older kids, to, hey, as soon as you start feeling like something's beginning to happen, I'm beginning to get some cold symptoms, go ahead and take some elderberry syrup. Be proactive, get this stuff into your body, and get that cold, flu, whatever sickness warded off as soon as you can. I can definitely say that this has helped me personally in the past get through some really rough colds much quicker than I normally would have. As well as I'd venture to say that even when I start feeling some mild cold symptoms, go ahead and take it for a couple of times, and a lot of times I'm able to completely ward the cold off and avoid it completely altogether. Of course, that just depends on each individual person and what kind of condition your immune system is in. But I'm a firm believer in this stuff, and my kids have used it for years, as well as my husband and myself, and we will definitely continue to be using it in this season of flu and COVID-19 that we're getting ready to go into. One very important note to make is that this does contain raw honey, and it is always advised to never give honey to children under the age of 1, because it can cause botulism and make them very sick. So please do not give this to any child under the age of 1, and make sure you do your own research and know that I'm not a medical professional. So don't consider this medical advice. This is purely my experience that I am passing on to you. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.